Hey everybody, this is Damien Brady and I am coming to you live from Build 2018, or recorded live from Build 2018. I'm joined today by Patrick Nicoletich from the App Center team.
Correct, yep.
Right, and today I'm a DevOps guy. We're talking about CI/CD for mobile apps.
Great.
iOS and Android.
iOS, Android, there's some UWP in there and some Mac OS as well, but we primarily focus on mobile development.
Okay,
Correct.
So in the keynote day one, I want to focus right on this. The keynote day one, we saw some really cool stuff about going from GitHub into App Center for your whole CI/CD pipeline all the way through. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's really exciting. So about a few months ago only, we haven't really been working on it that long.
Wow.
The opportunity kind of came up, and so we have a lot of users in GitHub. A lot of people wanted not just a basic CI setup, but they wanted a couple other features as well. And so we took advantage of the opportunity to deliver easy onboarding from GitHub, as well as pull request checks. So if you use the GitHub's new checks API that they have available, you can actually open up PRs, get them validated, and submit it to your master branch before you run your build.
Does that mean the PRs can build an app that I can look at and test?
So you can basically, what it's going to do is when you set up CI on your master branch, for example, and you open up a PR against that, what it does is it actually, because you have a configuration on your master branch, it clones that, kicks off a new build using that same configuration, minus options for like distribution and stuff, because you're not going to want to distribute a PR build.
Sure.
And so it allows you real quick and easily to get going with PR checks with basically no setup. And so users are thrilled to have that feature, because traditionally in App Center we had a different mindset on builds. It was really about building your app for testers as well as for distribution to the stores. And we're now starting to introduce other features that encompass pieces of the flow before that period.
Right, definitely. So there's two things there. There's a few things, but the testing as well of the PR builds, but you're distributing to users first or to testers first, like a subset.
Correct.
But also automated testing, is that?
Yeah, so we actually have a real device cloud, so you can run end-to-end UI tests in the cloud, totally away from your system and on over 300 or 3,000 devices, actually. And so if you're an iOS developer, you get all the main iPhones that you would expect. Where it gets interesting is on the Android side.
I was going to say,
because there's so much fragmentation there in terms of different manufacturers, different versions of the OS. And so we have just a ton of devices in the cloud over there.
That's very cool.
And so it's great because you can upload the test results, or actually view the test results and see screenshots on real devices, see what it looks like. It's really, really awesome stuff.
And then obviously if it's a PR build that's testing on these devices, you can see the problems before it even gets back into your master branch.
Correct.
So it's a good process for testing, I guess, before you're merging your code.
Absolutely. And you can do things like we do have support to run unit tests for you, though we're looking at ways to expand what you can look at in the portal. You have VSTS over here where you can get very rich reports for your unit and functional tests. And we've always been a little bit lighter weight, and it is by design. But you'll find that we're going to start having to open up various things, because with these different flows, and especially going down the route of pull request checks and whatnot, people want to know why things fail, and they don't want to always have to go into the logs, for example.
Well, one of the questions I get as well, because I talk a lot about VSTS, that's kind of my favorite product, the one that I've been using for a long time. The App Center actually for the builds and releases uses some of that infrastructure underneath, right?
Yes. So we built a Mac cloud for iOS applications, because there really is no other way to do it if you want to build a mobile application for an iPhone. And so the Mac pool that you actually see in VSTS, the Mac OS hosted preview pool, is the same pool that we run our App Center builds on.
Right.
We have a really great relationship with VSTS. They provide us with a lot of support on the back-end infrastructure. And so the interesting thing is when you actually create an app in App Center, set up a build, we're just basically proxying all that to VSTS and making that configuration as easy as possible.
Right, but the process and the UI is very much targeted around what you would want as an app developer.
100%.
For mobile. And
100%, absolutely. And if people want to do more robust things, we just tell them to go use VSTS.
Sure.
Because it has all the options and bells and whistles you can imagine, and it's a phenomenal tool that we use ourselves. But there are a bunch of the mobile developers that want to approach it and just set it up in 1 second and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there more stuff coming? I mean, that's just kind of putting you on the spot after
Sure.
just announcing a GitHub thing, but
Sure.
what are the next things for App Center?
Well, we spent an inordinate amount of time on GDPR.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And that's very important to us, and so we're actually really excited about the next half of this year. I can't formally announce anything yet because we like to leave some of the stuff to excitement and a little bit of the hype engine, that we love here at Microsoft so much.
Of course.
But for now, I mean, we are trying to nail down making sure the GitHub integration goes well and that we continue to implement the things we need to implement. There is definitely a priority to us. And then you'll see some features around crash and whatnot later on this year because we need to increase our crash support in App Center.
So that's an interesting point. I haven't touched on that at all. This is really interesting, but crash reporting, this is for the application running in the wild, like actually
Correct.
running live?
Correct.
This is the cycle part of the DevOps thing, right?
Exactly.
Getting monitoring back into your process. But so how does this work? This is something that I'm not personally familiar with.
Sure. So App Center comes with a set of SDKs for all of the platforms that we support. And we actually are always growing that list. I mean, we added a few more last year. I think we added macOS, tvOS, and Cordova last year.
Yep.
But we also have the standard platforms that mobile developers expect the most, like native, as well as React Native, Xamarin, of course.
Right, yeah, of course.
And so the way we handle crashes is mostly uniform across all the different platforms with some caveats between them. But essentially when a crash happens on a device, we actually kind of snapshot that crash information. And then the next time the app is opened up, we ship it up to App Center for processing.
Right.
And for certain platforms, we already have the symbols, especially if you hook up with our build service.
Okay.
So we can show you real stack traces. We do things like group crashes, and so you can identify impact. So for example, if there's 100 users of your mobile app and 50 of them receive the same crash, you're going to see that as a single line item that says 50 people were affected. And then maybe they ran into that a few times, and so it would say 70 total crashes or something like that.
Right, okay.
Really, really great, rich detail.
Yep. So that's the back end of the stuff, and obviously at the front end you've got your builds and releases and the test groups. Is this how it works? So
it's crash groups actually.
Oh,
so,
crash groups.
Yeah,
right.
correct. So like as the crashes occur, we don't want we have some very big customers, and so seeing like individual crashes listed out is just going to be a nightmare after a while. And so we do some we do some work on our end to basically merge things together and present the cleanest view you could possibly get.
Okay. So when you're doing the deployments, this is when we're in production. But before you get to production, you want to deploy to some early adopters or maybe some internal teams and things like that. That's a process that's all supported by App Center as well, right?
Correct. We have a couple different ways of doing distribution. The most traditional actually came from Hockey App, which is technically a part of App Center, and we've been kind of moving some features into App Center. And so based on some learnings we had from the Hockey App side, we actually introduced distribution groups to App Center.
Right.
So you can create a group, add people to it. You can actually make the group public, so it'll generate a public link where anybody with that link can actually access those downloads and get them installed.
Right.
So it makes it really accessible, easy to deploy something to a small group of testers you're trying to give them access.
Okay.
Yep.
What about even before that, like going backwards even further? The planning of the work you're doing and which features are in each release and things like that. Is there support for that kind of thing in App Center?
No, we strictly focus on the pipeline.
On the pipeline,
yeah, going all the way back to the work items. Again, a lot of our users are using things like VSTS for work item planning, just like we use it for as well.
But if you're the integration with GitHub that's where this comes in as well, because if you have the bits of code that you've changed, and let's say you're using GitHub issues to manage your work, that integration will kind of light up. Like you'll have your work tied to your commits, tied to the PRs, and then tied to the testing and so on. And then that flow kind of goes all the way through.
Yeah, and you know, the thing with GitHub and you know some of the other work item tracking systems is we actually do have integrations. And so if certain things happen in App Center, we can create work items inside of GitHub and VSTS automatically for you.
Oh, right.
That way we kind of do loop into that part of the development pipeline, but we're strictly focused on kind of build and delivery for the most part today.
So you're not trying to make that feature,
Correct.
you know, to compete with things that already exist that developers already use.
Correct. I mean, when you start going down that route, that creates a whole other world of problems that,
Sure.
frankly, we would much rather have the best support for the platforms that we offer, and really not focus on introducing something that we feel has already been solved by Microsoft in a fantastic way.
Yeah, awesome. That's very cool. Is there anything else that I've missed in this App Center process?
You know, there's the analytics portion, which is invaluable. That was something newer to you know, our mobile development technologies at Microsoft, and so we have some really great ways to gather analytics in kind of a streamlined fashion where you're not spending 100 hours configuring that. You're basically installing the SDK, linking it, defining what events you want to send to our backend, similar to Application Insights. And you can just quickly go into the portal, see how many people are using your app, how often they're using it, where they're using it from. You get information on like the most used devices, most used languages, so you can understand how to target your updates and your localization.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite features and areas of the product, if only because having those insights really affects everything else that I do before that point.
And there's an SDK for that available for basically all of the languages that you support.
Correct,
with the build,
correct,
right?
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you got the whole thing here, really. So the integration with GitHub right at the start, which is what was announced earlier this week.
Yep.
That's very cool for you know, getting started, especially for the developers who have their stuff in GitHub.
Definitely.
And then you get the whole thing: the build, the release, the analytics, the crash reporting, and then like distribution to all the different groups and so on.
Exactly, and you know, to circle back to distribution for a little bit, not only can you give it to testers, but you can send it to the stores. So if you expect Google Play, Alpha Beta, you know, test flights, the App Store,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
We also support, you know, Intune, for example, and you know, we'll be looking at other options in the future to figure out what support we can add there for the most part.
Yeah, awesome. So end to end for everything you need.
Into everything. I mean, the reason that we started with the GitHub piece was, you know, onboarding to a system is by far one of the most critical pieces of any interaction that a user can have with the product that you're trying to build. And so, you know, making that as easy as possible is always our highest priority in terms of, you know, increasing users' success rate when trying to get onboarded to App Center. And so there's going to be a lot of focus on simplifying the way people engage with our product and platform in the future. And so to kind of circle back to your original question, that's what I would look for in the future. Like what we're really focused on is making integrations tighter between our services, as well as just faster, simpler, all that other good stuff. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the question that Microsoft people, and I'm one of them, hates answering, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
Pricing. How does this work? Is this an app that is accessible to people?
So pricing is actually my favorite App Center topic.
Really? Okay, that's the first time.
Because we have great pricing, which we're pretty much free. And so
that's a good price.
You can't really beat that. I mean, there are the two core consumption services. You have build and you have test, right? And those actually require reserving production hardware for whatever you're trying to run, essentially. And so we give some of that away for free. But if you want to ramp up and run 10 builds at once and have, you know, unlimited build hours, as well as run UI tests across 10 devices at the same time, or 100 or 200, which you actually can do using our test service, that will incur, you know, some kind of a additional fee.
So I think I remember seeing build and release minutes, or build minutes is 240 a month at the moment. Is that right?
So if you sign up as a new user in the free plan, yeah, you get essentially 4 hours of builds free every month. And that will give you one concurrency. So you don't have the benefit of running, 3 PR builds and a regular build at the same time. And mainly we do that because, obviously you could also drain all of your minutes. And if one aggressive developer opens everything up, it can be pretty easy to do that. And so we give you the 4 to play around. We usually find that people will end up upgrading to at least the initial tier, which gives you a whole lot more. And that will kind of set you up to be able to, robustly do your builds and get going.
And it's a bit of a win-win, right? If you find yourself in that position where it's providing this value, then fantastic.
Yeah, and if you're just like an indie developer or a guy shop, like we find even 4 hours is usually enough. A build on a mobile app usually doesn't run for 30 minutes, like some of our service builds and whatnot. When it goes to mobile applications, they generally build pretty quick in the cloud. So
so that's the build minute, or the build pricing. What was you mentioned the test?
The test service. So because they are real devices, we literally have data centers where you just see a whole lot of devices hooked up. We do charge for additional concurrency and additional minutes on the device, essentially. So you can't just go into App Center, sign up for free, and be like, run this on,
3,000 devices.
1,500 devices.
Sure.
We don't actually have that many restrictions in how you can run. Really, if your plan is allocated for it and you want to go to town and you want to run it across all of them and you only have one concurrency, like we'll just spend the whole day running all of these tests for you. But it's by far one of our more complicated services just because of the real device aspect of it.
I would imagine.
And so again, like the concurrency and minutes is what you're going to pay for on that piece.
Okay, nice. So, all right, so where's the starting point? We saw the GitHub integration where you can go to that section of GitHub. And what is the section of GitHub, actually? So you're in your repo.
There's 2 pieces or 2 entry points. One is you have the marketplace in GitHub. GitHub apps are quickly becoming the de facto standard for building integrations. It's kind of you can look at it as a robot, really, that's operating for you. Whereas, traditionally before it was OAuth apps. And so that was more of you're granting access to something else, which is then, it can go to town and do whatever it wants. But it's authorized under a user, whereas the app is slightly different. We look at it a little bit more autonomous, and it's just operating in the background. So the one place to get through that is the marketplace. But we also introduced, because of the close partnership we have, is if you have a mobile project, which is Xamarin, Android, iOS native, and React native, it'll automatically detect that your repository is a mobile project when you open a PR.
Right.
And you'll see like a little banner that mentions like, hey, you could set up CI for this repo, and that'll link you to the marketplace page where you can see App Center right there.
That is very cool.
Yeah, which is great. So it's two easy ways to get introduced to.
And even though it's marketplace, that's not paid, right? It's just the minutes and the so on.
We have I think four tiers in there today. The first one is free, and that'll give you access to our free plan. And then we have a few other levels that give you more build minutes, more test minutes, that kind of stuff.
Okay, awesome. So that's one place to get started. If you're not using GitHub, App Center, what's the way to get started?
So there's a couple things. We actually just introduced the VS Code extension for App Center at Builds, which is really exciting because it actually allows you to basically onboard to App Center from VS Code itself.
Right.
And so currently we kind of did it because again we didn't start it too long ago, so we only have support for React Native today. But what you can do is if you have a current project, you can actually onboard that project. It'll install the SDK. It'll create an App Center app for you. It makes setup really, really easy for the most part. And then if you are a little bit curious about React Native and what it can do, you can actually create a new project from scratch, which actually creates a VSTS repository for you, uploads the code, hooks up SDKs, kicks off a build in the cloud, all within under 30 seconds. And so you can get going with essentially all the services and explore App Center from the extension without doing any other real setup.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So that's the extension for VS Code.
Yeah, so if you go in VS Code, there's in their extension marketplace as well. You search for App Center, it should be the top one.
Okay, awesome. There's like 5. I'm finding it hard to find something that VS Code doesn't do these days.
We use it heavily on the App Center team because a bunch of our services are written in TypeScript and whatnot on Node, and so the thing about App Center, which surprised us even, is React Native is actually the second most popular platform.
Really?
And so giving them some extra support, as well as working with other partners we have. There's MVP for Microsoft that's building a VS for Mac extension too. So we try to provide assistance there.
Okay.
And so it's kind of increasing the exposure, increasing the ease of onboarding by even enabling developers not to leave their tool that they're comfortable with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that there's show notes as well for this as well. But any final thoughts? Anything that you want people to look at? Just get started.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically go to appcenter.ms and just sign up with a couple easy clicks. Once you log in, there's like a little blue icon in the bottom right. You can click that and basically engage with the other program managers and engineers on our team. It all pretty much gets filtered to us anyways.
Right.
And so we're always looking for suggestions, way to improve, or just in general what roadblocks users run into that we can help fix to unblock them so they can be successful.
And clearly this is a fast-moving project if you only started some of this stuff a little while ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're super excited. We're continuing to accelerate the velocity of our development team and really deliver features more rapidly, day by day. And so I'm really excited for the future and the kind of offerings we're going to introduce.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Patrick, for joining me
Definitely.
very much. And stay tuned for more stuff from Build.